Shavua Tov, Gute Woch. Going to tell story number 64 of the Shivchei Baal Shem Tov. And tonight, like last week, we continue with a series of stories told by Rav Menachem Nachum of Chernobyl about Rav Avraham haMalach, or Avraham HaKadosh, the son of the Mesricher Maggid, who was the continuator, the next Rebbe after the Baal Shem Tov. Ve'oid siper Rav Nachum Aniskar La'el. This is another story told by Rav Nachum, above mentioned, Rav Menachem Nachum of Chernobyl. When Rav Avraham haMalach came to the city of Chavastov, which is Fastov, he isolated himself. He locked himself in the house where he was staying. It was completely isolated and no one could see him. Rab Nachum had told his praises. He exalted him to the people of the town, and people were in great expectation to see him. They all wished to see him, to meet this great tzaddik. Then one day there was a Bris Milah. There was a circumcision in this town of Fastov, and Rab Nachum received all the kivudim, all the honors of the Bris Milah. Rab Avraham haMalach was asked to be the sandek, the person who will hold the baby and give the name of the baby when they do the circumcision, the Bris Milah. After the davening, after the tefillah, people were waiting for a long time in shul. Apparently, Rav Avraham was davening in another shul, another synagogue, and they were waiting for a long time because he was marich vatfilah. He would extend his prayer for a long time. And when they heard that he was finally on his way to the shul, on his way to the synagogue, a great fear fell upon the people waiting, and they left the shul. Even though they had been waiting for a while, now they hear he's coming, something took them over and they left. And so about 20 people were left in the synagogue when Rav Avraham came in. When he came into the synagogue, walking very fastly, very speedily, the Rav of the Kehillah understood that he was coming to take his place, the place where he was sitting. So he moved to the side, and Rav Avraham indeed sat in the Rav's place and put his hand on the stender. The stender is the place where we hold the book. I have a place where I hold the book. So it was set in front of him, and he put rested his head on the stender. And when they brought the baby to the bima, his head was still laying down on the stender. So they told the shamesh of the shul, the synagogue helper, to come and let him know that the baby is now ready, to proceed. But he didn't want to go tell him anything because he felt this fear, this awe of this tzaddik. So they tried to tell someone else. They were looking like who will dare go and call the attention of Rav Avraham. And then Rav Avraham just lifted his head up and went to the bima. Rav Nachum tells the story, and now there is two versions. I don't know if they are contradictory or complementary. This paragraph I will read now according to how the author of the book Radover describes the story. And then there is a next paragraph in which the printer of the book, in the printing of 1814, which is some 16 years after the handwritten version of the book, this Rav Yisrael Yaffe, who was a chassid of the Alter Rebbe, based on what the Rebbe told him, wrote a different version of what Rav Nachum's testimony was. We'll see. So first, the author of the book, he says, Amar Rav Nachum, that Rav Nachum said, I was so afraid when I saw, so in such awe, when I saw Rev Avram come. I was so in such an awe that the knife for the milah, the circumcision knife, fell off of my hand, and I was able to grab it not from the side of the handle, from the side of the other side where he cuts. It doesn't say that he cut his hand; just he grabbed the knife from the other side. And Rav Menachem says, I was, and in that, and until today, I don't know if I say the proper blessings of the milah, of the circumcision, because of the awe in which I was of Rav Avram. And then I gave Rav Avram the kavod to say the bracha of Metzitza, and he did. The Metzitza is when the drop of blood is taken upon the circumcision. So when Rab Nachum came to his house after the Bris Milah, he sat silently and amazed. So his Gabbai came. His Gabbai will be his helper. Usually Gabbai is like a synagogue helper, but came and told him, offered him a few times if he wanted to drink kave. Kave is coffee in Yiddish. Offer him, do you want coffee? So Rav Menachem didn't want, and he moved him aside. So the Gabbai insisted again if he wants to drink coffee, until finally Rav Menachem Nachum told him, "Shoite, shoite, you're a fool. How could it be possible to go and do something like drinking coffee when we have just heard a person serving Hashem with his avodas to Hashem Yisborach, with this holy service, in such a way, with the roaring of sound of the street, but in just this moment, in such a way, in such a moment, how could I do something as mundane as drinking coffee?" That's one version of the story. Now, so it was heard from the Admor, the Rebbe, whose soul rests in Gan Eden. This is printed in 1814, so it's shortly after the time, couple of years after the passing of the Alter Rebbe, and Rav Yaffe tells how the Alter Rebbe tells it. Shamanu, we heard, meaning the Alter Rebbe who met Rav Menachem and Avraham haMalach. He says we heard from Moreinu Harav Menachem Nachum of Chernobyl that he was Sandek, and Harav Moreinu Avraham, the Rav, our teacher Avraham haMalach, Zichron Libracha, of blessed memory, was the Moel. And when Rav Avram said the bracha of the Bris Milah, so in this version, Rav Menachem was confused, he didn't know. Rav Avram said the bracha of the Bris Milah in such a great fear of Hashem, such a ira gedola, that the knife fell off of his hand, off of the hand of Rav Avram, because of the awe and the trembling, the great awe and trembling in front of Hashem Yitbarach. After this, Moreinu Harav Menachem Nachum asked him, what is that great awe, great fear about? What's the nature of it? To which Rav Avram answered, Be'inai yifla. It is a marvel to my eyes. I cannot get to comprehend. How is it possible to even ask such a question? To Rav Avram, the Bris Milah was such a moment in front of Hashem that is that to Menachem couldn't get to understand. He was just in awe of the tzaddik. Rav Avram was in awe of Hashem, while saying the bracha and doing the Bris Milah. And that's the story. We will continue next week with yet another story of Rav Avram haMalach. Shavua Tov, Akut Tevach.